see, 35, and I know I'm not the average woman by any means. At least that's what people tell me. Being an Afro-American woman with curves that make heads turn even on my lazy days. I've learned the effect I can have on people, but none of that matters as much as the person who's seen me beyond all that. The one who's been there for better or worse, even when he was the cause of my heartbreak. Kelvin, my husband. Kelvin and I have been together for years, and our love has that raw intensity that can burn so bright, but also be dangerous when things go off track. He's everything to me, my high school sweetheart, the guy who could make me laugh until I forgot my own name. Dark chocolate skin, light brown eyes that soften when he's in a good mood, a strong jawline, and a solid, muscular frame. Kelvin's been the guy who could make me feel like the most beautiful woman in the room, even when he didn't say a word. When we got together, I thought it was forever, and I still believe it, even if there've been bumps along the way, especially recently. Kelvin's no saint, and I've come to learn that being with him comes with its own roller coaster of highs and lows. There were times he would come home late, with weak excuses and a slick smile, brushing things off with a charm that I could never fully resist. He had done his fair share of what he would call slips over the years, leaving me with a fragile sense of trust, like a teetering glass. I was always forgiving him, always hoping we'd make it through. But sometimes a woman needs more. She needs someone who won't take her for granted. But despite everything, Kelvin has this hold on me, a piece of my heart he'll always own. For all the times he disappointed me, there were also those moments that stitched my love for him back together. The nights he'd show up with my favorite bottle of wine, knowing I'd had a long day, or the time he took me to the beach and promised we'd start over. No more lies. That's the thing about Kelvin. He's complicated, he's flawed, but there's a rawness to his love that keeps pulling me back in. Then there's my best friend, Rita. We met back in middle school. Two 10-year-olds bonded by a love for dancing and a knack for getting into trouble. Rita is my anchor, my sounding board, the one person I can tell anything to. Well, almost anything. Rita's seen it all, every fight with Kelvin, every mistake I made, and she's been the one to pull me out of every mess, even if I was too ashamed to admit the worst of it. I know she wants what's best for me, and when she calls me out, she's not just being blunt, she's being a sister. Rita keeps me grounded, reminding me who I am and who I want to be, even if sometimes I don't want to hear it. But even with Rita, there are things I keep close, tucked in the corners of my mind, the things I'm not ready to admit to myself, much less to anyone else. And lately, one of those secrets has been Tony. I'd never seen myself drawn to a man like Tony before. He was Latino, tall and solid, with these hazel eyes that made me feel seen, even in a crowd. He wasn't Kelvin. He wasn't even close. He was different, and maybe that's what attracted me in the first place. It started as a small crush, one I ignored, hoping it would fade. I'd see Tony on rare occasions, at work gatherings or events, and I kept my distance, making sure I never gave him a reason to notice me too much. But somehow, he always did. Tony wasn't one to flirt outright. He'd linger on the edges, his gaze steady, a quiet confidence that made me feel nervous in the best possible way. And when he'd smile, there was this spark, a dangerous one, that I kept pretending wasn't there. This is my confession. One early morning, The sunlight pierced through the blinds, casting stripes of light across the bed and landing directly on my eyes. I groaned and turned over, my head pounding like a drum, my throat as dry as desert sand. Today was my birthday, the official day, but the excitement I'd felt yesterday had been replaced by something darker, something twisting uncomfortably in my stomach as I tried to remember how I'd even gotten home. I sat up, catching a glimpse of myself in the mirror across the room. My hair was a mess, makeup smudged under my eyes from a night I couldn't fully recall. Every part of my body felt heavy, weighed down not just by the hangover, but by a gnawing feeling I couldn't shake. "Good morning, Bae," I said cautiously, climbing back into bed, trying to sound casual. I glanced at Kelvin, hoping he was still asleep, but he was sitting up, his eyes already fixed on me, his face cold and unreadable. His look sliced through me, and immediately I knew. He was hurt, and this time I wasn't entirely sure I could explain it away. "What's so good about it?" Kelvin's voice was low, tinged with the kind of suspicion that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. "The fact that you're here today, or the fact that you made it home safe." His words hit me, sharp and deliberate, and my mind scrambled to piece together fragments from the night before. I'd been with my friends, celebrating, and then, what? I forced a casual laugh, desperately trying to lighten the mood. "It's not like that, Kelvin," I said, forcing a smile. "Mary, Lucy, and I were drinking after work. You know how overtime is, just a long, tough day. I crashed in my car for a while, that's all. There was traffic. I just lost track of time." But even as I said it, the words felt hollow, rehearsed, like they'd been scripted to fill the silence. Kelvin's eyes didn't waver, didn't soften. He just sat there, quiet, staring at me with an intensity that made my stomach twist tighter. "I don't want to celebrate your birthday," he said flatly, his voice empty of its usual warmth, "because I feel like you're lying to me, Nancy." I turned away, pulling the covers over my head, hiding from his gaze, but the pit of guilt inside me was relentless. I knew I'd messed up somehow. I just couldn't put my finger on exactly what it was. Lying there, I started to replay everything I could remember, little fragments that had begun to flicker back in flashes. I remembered waking up at 4 a.m., dressing in my work clothes and heading out the door, just like any other Saturday. I'd been exhausted, but excited, looking forward to a few drinks with friends after work, excited to feel a little free, a little reckless. And then there was the familiar weight of the small bottle of Remy Martin I'd slipped into my purse, a birthday treat for myself, a little indulgence to kick off the night. And then I tried to close my eyes, digging deeper. I remembered Mary laughing, Lucy shouting, "Shots, shots, shots," as she handed me a cup, and then Tony. I remembered him, standing there, just out of place enough to catch my attention. I jolted, my eyes snapping open. Tony. That's right. He'd been there, arriving with a big bottle of Remy in his hand, a half smile on his face as he walked over and handed it to me with that deep, quiet voice of his. "Happy birthday, Nancy." I'd smiled back, trying to keep my cool, trying not to let on how my heart raced when I saw him. But after that, everything was a haze. "Come on, Nancy, think," I whispered to myself, pulling the blankets over my head, trying to shut out the world and focus on the snippets floating back to me, like puzzle pieces I couldn't quite fit together. I remembered that the sun had set by the time Tony had settled in. His presence a little too close, the glances a little too long. I remembered laughing with him, feeling lightheaded and warm. He shared a drink with me, our hands brushing briefly, and that strange, thrilling chill that ran up my spine when his fingers lingered just a little too long against mine. Then, nothing but a foggy memory of his deep voice in my ear, low, so close I could almost feel his breath, saying something I couldn't quite recall. I pulled myself from bed, needing air, feeling the need to do something to shake the guilt. My mind was racing, and the tension in my body felt unbearable. I caught Kelvin's eyes on me, watching, but I couldn't even meet his gaze. I threw on a tank top and shorts, hurried into my car, and drove aimlessly, my thoughts spinning as I tried to put the pieces together. As I drove, I scrolled through my phone, praying for some clue, something that could fill in the gaps. I found 4 pictures I'd taken, my heart sinking with each one I opened. The first, a blurry close-up of Tony's neck. The second, a red blur across the screen, like I tried to take a picture in the dark. The third, a random shot of the park, my location pinged at Elysian Park. And then the fourth, another blur, too dark to make anything out. The only real clue left were the voicemails, 3 short clips from Tony himself. Voicemail 1, "Hey Nancy, where you at? Girl, call me." Voicemail 2, "Nancy, where you at with that ass, booty?" His voice was teasing, low, almost intimate. Voicemail 3, and there was laughter, distant music, and Tony's voice, low and close. Hey, Nancy, come here. Where are you going? Do you have plans tonight? Is that right?" My face burned, both at the familiar way he spoke and the cold reality that I couldn't remember responding to him. I scrolled back up, tempted to call him back, maybe just to hear his voice again, to see if it might trigger a memory. But I stopped myself. What would I even say? After my meal at Bobo's, I started to feel the fog clear a little more. Small memories surfaced, hazy flashes of me and Tony standing by the tree line in the park, his hand resting on my back, his eyes never leaving mine. I remembered him joking, then leaning in, his lips close, just close enough to feel the thrill in my pulse, like he was testing me, tempting me. I pressed the heel of my hand to my forehead, trying to keep the guilt at bay. Did I cross a line? Maybe not with words, maybe not even with actions, but emotionally? Emotionally, I'd felt something. I'd wanted something, and the fact that I couldn't remember how it ended left me feeling both ashamed and strangely curious. Had I flirted back? Had I let myself feel something for him that I shouldn't have? The nagging guilt settled heavier, laced with shame, yet tinged with something else, something I didn't want to admit. It was just one moment, a passing, innocent touch, a soft smile. But that's how it started. And as I lay here now, with the reality of last night looming over me, Kelvin's quiet anger, a tangible presence, I can't deny that I felt something with Tony, something that both excited and terrified me. Thank you for joining us on this captivating journey through Nancy's complex love story. If you felt the tension, the thrill, and the emotional roller coaster of her birthday adventure, give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to share this video with your friends and loved ones to spread the magic of romance. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below. What did you think of Nancy's choices? Have you ever faced a situation that tested your loyalty or ignited a spark of temptation? Share your own romantic stories or confessions of love and betrayal through our mails. Let's create a space where we can connect over our experiences in love, both the sweet and the bittersweet. Remember to subscribe for more heartwarming and thought-provoking stories. Until next time, keep the love alive.